We are live. The leg kick is coming at you under extreme duress, under threat of COVID-19. We're still here doing the damn thing. What's that?
And there's a storm outside.
No, there's not. Liar.
I have a storm outside. That's why my Wi-Fi was bad for like 30 seconds. The storm
No. There can't be a storm at your place and not over here. That's impossible.
You'd think. Wait, hold on a second. We don't live like too far, so that's true. But, like,
don't tell the creeps of the internet that kind of information. No, that's bad.
I like when people come in. I get to beat them up.
Oh, that's what you do to them, eh?
Unless they're in the UFC.
Then I lose.
So before we get started, I just wanted to say out there to our audience, guys, subscribe, like the podcast on YouTube, download it on the podcast app. We are doing this thing under the threat of a global pandemic from the safety of our own homes, providing you with the entertainment you need. The least you could do is subscribe, like, tell people about the leg kick, and that's all I got to say.
Well,
roll credits.
Ditto. Is your video on? Or
me?
Yeah.
My video?
Yeah, my video's on.
Yeah,
right,
I'm on too.
All right, perfect. Okay, then.
Okay, cool. I guess I should introduce everybody.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Welcome to the Leg Kick Podcast. As Stefano said, like, subscribe, do all that nice stuff. Here on the podcast is David, Muay Thai legend in Ottawa. Muay Thai.
We're not getting that off. Enthusiast, avid watcher, beginner. Give me beginner. I'll take beginner.
But this is just an actor we've hired to play David. The real David is an artificial intelligence. He doesn't actually exist. Yes, this is.
Yes. I'm like Jarvis from Marvel.
Oh, nice reference.
Jarvis.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that's David. He's on camera. By the way, you're gonna hear droplets of rain because we are having a storm. I don't know how you don't have it right now. But.
Well, Mike, after the story that you just told us earlier, I doubt that those droplets are a storm.
We're a Christian podcast. Oh no. And then that guy who's blurring the lines, just tiptoeing, is
Robin Thicke. Oh, sorry.
Cream of the podcast. Stefano.
The cream of the podcast, going inside the coffee every week.
Can Stefano just be the Robin Thicke of the podcast? I like that.
Sure, Robin Thicke of the podcast.
As long as I get to be within 100 meters of Emily Ratajkowski, I'm okay with that. So, guys, a little bit of big COVID-19 news or sports news this weekend.
Go ahead.
Just get right
no, God, you got into it.
Well, there's a couple big developments, but I don't know if we're going in the same spot.
Oh,
you go first.
So
if only we had a doc.
Yeah. A Google Doc. So the big one for me that I was going to get into is that Doris Burke and James Dolan have both tested positive for COVID-19. So that's the big one in the world of the NBA. Now, for those who don't know Doris Burke or James Dolan, Doris Burke is an analyst / former player for Providence in the women's basketball, in women's college basketball, and she became an analyst, prominent on the NBA broadcasting for I want to say ESPN / NBC. ABC. And yeah, that kind of broke everyone's heart. Hold on, give me a second. There we go. That broke everyone's heart when they heard that news. But the one that is interesting to me is James Dolan, Jim Dolan to his friends. By the way, he has a band.
Jimbo?
Huh?
Jimbo Jones?
Jimbo Jones.
Man, James Dolan, he has a band. It's called JD and the Straight Shot. I listened to a couple of their songs. They're actually pretty bad. But, like, he's trying. He's doing his thing.
That sounds like a parody band.
It's crazy. They try, And
they sound like they play like cover like Hootie and the Blowfish cover songs. You know what I mean?
How are you naming these
but I don't know
bands
if you've ever heard of like the Butthole Surfers. I don't know if we're gonna be.
It's not that kind of podcast, man.
Come on.
But they're a real band.
We talk about Christianity and Jesus over here.
It's fine. The Chrysler servers.
This is a Zoroastrian podcast.
All right. My bad, guys. My bad.
No, but yeah, okay. Anyway, let me get to James Dolan because it's interesting because a lot of people, at least on social media, were quite mean about it. Like really mean about James Dolan. They were like kind of almost cheering that he had coronavirus.
Why is that? Do people not like this gentleman?
Yeah. See, the reason why they don't like him is because he's a bad sports owner, right?
Hilarious.
He's like,
you can tell
being a bad sports owner is like the least of anybody's worries, though. Like he's made the Knicks bad. Okay, so
wait, actually, come on. I think you're putting it a little bit lightly. I believe the term Charles Oakley used was he had turned the Knicks into a plantation. Yes, I believe that's the direct quote.
A plantation? What is that? Is that some kind of a racial thing? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, did he? Like
that's exactly what he said.
Okay, that's what he said, but did he?
Hey, man, I don't know. Charles Oakley played for the Knicks. I did not.
Yeah.
Play for the Knicks, so
I mean, like, there's some legendary Charles Oakley Raptor stories that like we should talk about off air. They're pretty funny.
Oh, speaking of people losing their damn minds, Jon Jones.
Oh yeah,
that's a hell of a segue.
Hey man, he's gonna take my job. Like,
I'm gunning for you, big guy.
I feel like I get what you mean in terms of people are being mean, but I mean it's the internet, right? Are we really shocked in 2020 that people are being mean on the internet?
Yeah, but like in the face of like a world pandemic, really, you care about like
we're all home. What else are we gonna do?
I know. I guess it's like it's one of those weird things. It's like really like because he's a bad sports owner, you're like, yay, this will make him sell the team. Like, come on.
Well, hold on. David said we're all home. I'd like to correct that. Jon Jones is not home. He's out.
Segue.
He's out drinking mezcal tequila, shooting off his 45, driving drunk. It's madness out here. It's not even Sparta. It's madness.
Dude,
I want to be a fly on the wall when Jon Jones is having this idea comes into his mind. Like,
did you guys see that? Did you guys see that body cam footage?
Oh my god, it was so sad, man. It was
I nearly was brought to tears.
Yeah, I got about 75% of the way through, and I'm just like, oh, I can't get through this. Like,
it was one of the more sadder. Like, this is a guy who can't control himself. What it looked like. That's what it looked like to me. By the way, for those who don't know, Jon Jones, if you've been living under a rock, Jon Jones was arrested for driving while intoxicated. That's what it's called in the USA.
DWI.
Driving while intoxicated and negligent use of a firearm.
Popping off shots, drinking Jorge Masvidal's mezcal tequila. He actually was drinking mezcal.
Allegedly.
No, they found it. The police report, public record. They stated that he's drinking Jorge Masvidal's alcohol.
Tested
two.
Sorry?
Nothing. Please go on.
David, first of all, before we continue this topic, I don't know what kind of webcam you're using, but honestly, you look like one of those bank security cam footages right now.
Yes.
Like, honestly, I expect you to, I don't know, start punching an old lady in the face and taking her purse or something.
Hilarious.
It's like six frames per second over here. Wait, did you say is that a racial thing?
Yes, I did.
Yes, it is.
Hilarious.
Man.
But
yeah, back on Jon Jones.
Back on Jon Jones. Yeah, the body cam footage was just so sad. He's talking to this officer, and like you can tell, just like he knows he effed up. Like he's just. And he's just one of the things that struck me as well, like as the officer is going through the test, I don't know if he said this as a means to like not have the officer administer a certain sobriety test or not, but he said, "Oh, I have memory issues." He said, right? He's like, "I have memory issues. I get punched in the face or something like that. Like I have a terrible short-term memory." But then again, he also, when the cop asked him to recite the alphabet, he's like, "Oh, my daughter's just dyslexic." So who knows if that was an excuse or he genuinely is having some.
My daughter's dyslexic. Oh,
yeah. So I don't know if he was saying that as like a way to get out of doing a certain sobriety test or like he's genuinely experiencing some memory issues due to. I wouldn't be surprised either way. But man, John, get some help if you're listening to our lowly podcast.
Why would he? But I agree.
And I don't know. Let me throw it to you guys.
You want to throw it to us?
Yeah, throw it to us, man.
Jeez, Mike. Okay. I didn't know you felt that way.
Sorry, my bad. My connection.
Let me throw it to you guys. Awkward silence.
Yeah, no.
We're just waiting with our hands open, like.
No.
Mike just like, guys, let me throw it to you.
My connection's getting really bad because of this storm. But like, okay, let me ask you guys. So this is the latest in a couple scandals for Jon Jones, right? At what point do we stop forgiving him? And at what point does the UFC stop forgiving him? Is this that point?
I don't think. Oh, David, you want to go first?
I was going to say, this is a Christian podcast, so we're all about forgiving.
There it is. Gold star for you.
Funny how Christians tend to be some of the most judgmental people.
We're in the middle of a pandemic, man. I've been reading my
Sorry, But I was just gonna say. Sorry, my assistant. So, yeah, man. I think as far as the UFC goes, they're going to be willing to forgive Jon Jones as long as he's breaking in the money. Like they're willing to. The UFC will suck every ounce of money they can out of you, and it seems like there's a two-tiered system with stars where if you're not breaking the dough, you're subject to a certain set of guidelines and morals, and if you are, feel free to become a heel, and we'll continue to make money off of you. Yeah, I feel like there's going to be no repercussions on the UFC side, to be honest. What are they going to do? Like hit him with a fine? Kick him out of the organization, have him go to Bellator? Like it doesn't seem like there's anything they can do. They'll let Jon Jones crash his car into as many pregnant ladies and McGregor punch as many old people as they like, as long as they're bringing in the dough. But like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this going to have an effect on his stock, on his
I think there's no doubt it's going to affect his stock. A couple of points that you made there that I definitely agree with. Number one is, at the end of the day, the UFC is a corporation, and corporation function in capitalist systems. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is the most valuable commodity. And if you're in the fight business as a fighter, that's what you are. You're just a commodity for a corporation. So it just is what it is. They're gonna wait. They're gonna squeeze as much money as they can out of you. It's your job as a fighter to squeeze as much money as you can out of the corporation as well, or out of this fight game as well, while you're still able to participate. That's number one. And number two, that I'll agree with you, is that I think the beauty and the easiest way to judge how these things work is precedent. That's pretty much how our legal system is based, right? And how usually when people want to justify their decisions, it's a lot easier to justify it when you have other decisions that kind of have the same rationale and same logic to back up your decision in the present. Giving you an example, or let me give you, or kind of further how it relates to this case. Conor McGregor, when he gets in trouble for punching that old dude in the face, when he gets in trouble for those sexual assault allegations, I don't know what we're calling.
Allegedly.
Alleged. I don't know. When he gets in trouble, basically.
Well, they're allegations, so of course they're alleged.
But when Dana White was asked about it, it's like, hey, are you going to do anything to kind of punish him? He was just like, oh, trust me, I don't need to do anything. He's going to be fine. That's plenty enough. Another example, Conor McGregor, Khabib. when they got into the altercation, which involves getting out of the ring to fight in what could have been anybody else, that could have been easily been at least breach of the peace or disturbing the peace or just peace destroyer. I don't know what the legal term is.
Yes, we understand.
But that could have been easily, at the very least, inciting a riot. There's so many different like crazy like cases you could throw at them. But what happened? They got a fine by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and basically nothing. They got a fight. Khabib was fighting a few months later, like 6 months later, or no, I believe it was about a year later. They actually got a pretty decent fine, a decent suspension, and then to even take it
and he
back,
could have had reduced. He could have had reduced, but he didn't out of principle.
Yeah, and it also included time served, which is so ridiculous.
See, I would personally like to see some sort of consistency, at least with other major sports organizations. We see, certain fines and repercussions, and those. It'll happen. Maybe they'll lean on the more lenient side when it comes to more famous players as far as suspensions goes, right? But it happens. There's at least a range within this takes place. With the UFC, it seems like there's no consistency. When it comes to some of the undercard fighters, Dana White's willing to simply throw the book at them. But when it comes to a Jon Jones or Conor McGregor, it's no, let the commission deal with that. Let the law enforcement deal with that. We're not going to step in as a body who's going to put repercussions against Jon Jones.
First of all, I also wanted to just add something, Michael, quickly. Is that if you remember when Jon Jones previously got into legal troubles because of his hit and run case, he was actually stripped of the title, because back then there was a code of conduct that they were at least a little bit more explicit and a little bit more consistent on. Now, especially since the Conor McGregor era, like now all of that is just blown to what. So I think that also plays a factor into whatever decision they're going to make regarding his title. But I already see that Jan Blachowicz, no, not Jan Blachowicz, Thiago Santos says that he should fight Dominic Reyes for the vacant title because Jon Jones is a disgrace.
Yeah. What do you guys think? You're in Dana White's position, right? You're in control of these things. What do? What repercussions?
What's that?
What do you do for?
How many millions of dollars have you made me? I'm gonna let it rock. I'm sorry. Like, don't drink and drive. Super dangerous, but like, I'm gonna let it rock. Like, come on.
But is it a good PR look for the UFC if one of your biggest stars?
They already look terrible every time one of these things already come up because Dana White. Here's what I think they should do. They should strip Jon Jones.
Wow.
Jon Jones. Yeah, they should strip him. Jon Jones. They should cut him. But
what?
I said they shouldn't cut him. They should not cut him, but they should strip him. They should have the title vacant. And they should have Jon Jones go through a period of steps, like, check in with rehab, put some bonuses in the contract, maybe some incentives in the contract that, like, if you go to rehab, here's an extra this much money, like they did with there was a player like that. They did that with a football player. It's like, if you do this, here's an extra this much money in your bonus. If you do this, here's an extra this much in your bonus. And it was all towards health and wellness, right? They can do that. I think that's what they should do. What they will do is they'll have Jon Jones fight in like 6 months' time against Dominic Reyes or Jan Blachowicz, and they'll have the promo feature the body cam image in the promo. They'll have
classic UFC.
Yeah. They'll have Dominic Reyes and the Jon Jones fight too in there. They'll have Dominic Reyes talking a whole bunch about how he should have won. They'll have Jon Jones near a fire pit like they did last time for that Daniel Cormier promo, right? And he's and they'll have that guitar acoustic in the background where it's like, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I'm with God now. And you'll walk away from the fire pit, right?
A bunch of quotes from a bunch of talking head UFC sanctioned reporters. Yeah, with a bunch of quotes from talking head UFC reporters, like, this is preposterous, or Jon Jones' rise is meteoric,
And you'll still hear the acoustic in the back, too.
I've got to say, though, as far as, like, Jon Jones' marketability, I feel like to an extent, yeah.
Through the roof.
Well, I disagree. I feel like to an extent the UFC doesn't know what to do with him. I feel like for a while when these kind of antics started up, they tried to market him as a bit of a heel, but I don't think people see him as much of a heel. Jon Jones, to be honest with you, I think a lot of people want to like him, but I think what we see is not a heel. I don't think he's an asshole. I think Jon Jones is, quite frankly,
wait, it's a Christian podcast, man.
Oh, it's barely a swear word. That's barely a swear word. That's barely a swear word.
Yeah, you know, Clefable Dollar once said the A word.
Hilarious. And I did say,
But
like, similar.
For me, all signs with Jon Jones kind of point to a star in decline, like a man who just has been to the top for so long and just who knows what's going on in his mind right now. But he's clearly a very troubled person, and I don't know how marketable a train wreck is, but I think, you know, the whole people aren't really willing to buy into the comeback story either at this point. So what do you do with the guy? Like keep consenting to this behavior until he ends up killing somebody or himself, or, you know, runs himself into the ground BJ Penn style? I'm really not sure.
I'm telling you, like, Dana White, like, he has the power to do it. Like, put some incentives in his deal. Like, if you check in the rehab, this much money for you. If you don't, then then we cut this much off. If you,
I don't know.
Like,
I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, no, you're oversimplifying addiction.
I know I am.
Money clearly
but the point I'm
isn't
trying
an
to make is
incentive.
that be responsible for these are your commodities, right? Then be responsible for your commodities, right?
I don't know. I think Jon Jones is clearly someone, though, like the root of the issue here is deeper than incentivizing him with a little bit of money.
Sure.
Right?
He's rich. He already has money. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't do this anymore for the money. If you hear a lot of his interviews, he's talking pretty much exclusively about legacy. Never, and even after his fights, we're never talking about Jon Jones' numbers, which, by the way, aren't as good as you would think, given the amount of hype around him and given his skills as well. But for some reason, that never really translates into his numbers. But I think that to say that if they gave him incentives, that all of a sudden would somehow, maybe if he was younger in his career, maybe, but at this point, like, I hate the term just a star, like a fading star. I don't know if I would agree with that necessarily, but even if they did say, like, let's say strip him, cut him even, what's he going to do?
But that's my point, is that, like, let's say you strip him. Let's say in an alternate universe you were to strip him. That's his legacy right there. That belt is his legacy. Right?
He's going to go to Bellator.
If you strip him, I don't think so.
Hold on a second. Time out.
We're not an employee.
He's gonna value a Bellator belt as much.
Man, if it comes with freedom, yes, and don't act like you wouldn't make the same decision. Like, if it comes with freedom, there's a lot of people who are gonna think, I've already been to the mountaintop. Like, I don't need to listen to these people. They don't need to tell me I've beaten the best of the best. I'm beating the scrubs right now. Not to say that anybody fighting the scrubs, but you know what I mean. Like, I've beaten the people who were starting out after I started out. Like, he doesn't have to prove anything. So for me, I feel like there's been a lot of cases like that where...
Yeah, but I don't know if I agree with you, David. I don't know if I agree, because while Jon Jones, to an extent, is a star in decline, and, you know, clearly he doesn't have the same kind of offensive prowess that he once did, and he's, you know, eking by on a lot of very close decisions, some controversial, based on, you know, his defensive awareness and based on... tactics, as opposed to like the pure, raw, reckless, aggressive Jon Jones we saw in the past. I don't think we've ever seen a star, while he's in decline, at the top of the heap, go over and move to Bellator like that. It would be unprecedented. Like the closest example to that I could think of is the Mighty Mouse one, and that was still coming off of a loss.
And he was traded for a guy who had a lot more fanfare too, right?
But
so,
he was a better fighter than Ben Askren still.
Of course. But
still, today, he's probably still the best fighter at that weight division. So...
not disputable. I don't think that's disputable, and I agree that he's one of the best, and that's exactly my point. Like, I don't see what a Bellator is going to offer him at this point, especially I don't think he's going to respond to being stripped necessarily that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think if you strip him of his title, his next logical move is going to be
get it right
Let's
back.
go to Bellator and fight Ryan Bader.
He's gonna say, let's get right back. Like, that's my whole point, is like, let's say you strip him, right? And you're like, well, we're not gonna let you in until you follow these goalposts, right? We give you, that's what I'm saying. You give you 6 months, and we'll even throw some money in there for you. I'm not saying it will work. I'm saying that's what I would do, right? Because you can do it.
I don't know if I agree with Mike either, to be honest with you. Like, I agree that probably that's what the UFC should do. Will it work and get Jon Jones on the straight and narrow? I don't think so. I don't think there's anything you can do really to get the man on the straight and narrow. I think this is, I think this is something that has to come from within. And
especially when you're talking about mental health issues. And once again, I just think precedent. Look at Tony Ferguson, who is still scheduled to fight next month. What were we talking about with Tony Ferguson 6 months ago? His mental health issues.
That's a little bit different because Tony's misbehavior wasn't criminality, right?
Behavior? Like, there was police records.
Yeah, but like Christina, like
but Tony never.
The first one. This was a pattern of behavior that had been happening over years.
Tony never
injured anyone. We're making it seem like, oh yeah, he was misbehaving. Like, no, this was like serial abuse that had been happening over years.
Wait, who are you talking about? Wait, hold on. Who are you talking about? Tony
Ferguson.
No. Let's get. We've got to be clear because like abuse isn't a term that should be thrown around lightly. There was no abuse. There was no abuse in the case of Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, Christina Ferguson. Let me just said that there was no abuse.
Yeah, let me set the record straight. Okay. There was no abuse. He has a history of schizophrenia. He takes medication for it. There was no abuse. Basically, what was happening was he was off his medication and he was digging into the walls of his house because he thought people were spying on them. But his wife maintained nobody. She was never hit. His kids were never hit.
Not abuse. Violent outbursts which were endangering the lives of those around him.
I don't even think you can go that far.
I think that's even a little far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mental health issue, absolutely, but there's a big difference in the fact that
for sure. I should not be using the word abuse like that, but I do think that too easily, especially in the mixed martial art community, too easily we downplay that reality that a lot of people face.
Fair.
That a lot of mixed martial arts practitioners have a lot of mental health issues, and the people who face it the most are the ones at home. And I feel like, we can be like, oh yeah, he has, but just because what happened, and that's not to say Tony Ferguson is like an abusive person. That's not what I'm trying to say. And I shouldn't put that narrative out there. So thank you for correcting me. You're right. I do remember that story, and it was more like that than other cases. But there have been other cases where we've had serial abusers who've been completely forgiven. Let's
start with Ed Hardy, that scumbag.
Yeah. Greg Hardy?
Yeah, I call him Ed Hardy because I don't think he deserves the dignified respect of being called Greg Hardy. But
don't want an SEO popping up. Hilarious.
Yeah. But let's start with that. Let's start with the fact that everybody seems to be okay with this, woman abuser fighting in the UFC. When in the past, I remember them cutting people like Miguel Falcao for that. Diego Brandao for similar antics. I mean, there needs to be some kind of a consistent line here. Like the UFC can't be they're in the short-term game money gaining process,
but I feel like that's been the thing that they've done recently. Like when the Fertittas were there, there was some sort of consistency. Now, were they always right 100% of the time? No one's saying that. But what I am saying is that it felt like if you were kind of like, they cut War Machine for like way less, remember? And War Machine, and they cut him
say
early.
Way less?
No. Hold on. You have to remember at the timeline of what was going on with War Machine, the stuff that he was doing way after was way before they cut him.
Right? Oh, right. Okay, you're right. Yeah. I stand corrected.
No, but like, I thank you for making me make my point clear, right? So like when War Machine was doing, it was like just like, antics, mouthing off to Dana, stuff like that, and they were like, okay, you're gone. And that's when you started to see all the patterns of misbehavior with one of the more evil fighters in like MMA history.
Now, let me pose a hypothetical to you, because War Machine, obviously, he was, not a pay-per-view draw. What do you think the Fertittas do if somebody like George St. Pierre or Anderson Silva, one of their biggest draws at the time, or a Brock Lesnar, starts having similar antics to Jon Jones? Do you think they...
Can I just say that, first of all, I think this is a specifically North American phenomenon, I would say. I think that other cultures, it would not be as big of a deal. So for Anderson Silva, I'm sorry to say, I don't think it would be that. First of all, I'm not even sure we'd hear it. And second of all, I'm not sure it would be as big of a deal as if it was Jon Jones, weirdly enough.
Wait, so hold on. Drunk driving, you're saying? Like if within Brazil, it wouldn't be as big of a deal?
Even internationally. See,
I'm not willing to agree or disagree with you or comment on that, to be honest, because I'm kind of uninformed on the topic. But I guess I'm gonna have to take your word for it.
Okay, I guess like if I'm not saying, I'm just saying like the Fertittas, like it seemed like they just had a better way of dealing with this, whereas WME, am I wrong in saying that? Like just like I don't have any numbers, I don't have any statistics, I don't really have like I would have to look it over and get back to you guys next week. I'll admit that, but I just feel like the Fertittas were just a lot better at handling these kind of things than the new ownership. And that's not to say the new ownership is better or worse. It's just something I think I'm noticing.
Right. I have the suspicion that I want to agree with you on this. Like just kind of, a cursory look through my memory seems to confirm that. But at the same time, I would have to go back and do a little research myself. But it does seem like, at under WME, they have more of a tendency to kind of play a hands-off approach to disciplining their big stars like this. Mind you, did we see? I'm thinking of previous examples with Jon Jones, but have we seen other examples of like a big star, a big money-making star pulling these sorts of antics under the Fertittas?
That's actually, I don't know.
Maybe some of Jon Jones's early transgressions were under the Fertittas.
And they stripped him.
Yeah, but Conor McGregor. Well, no, that was
his antics. I think were post WME.
Like the big ones, the ones that like I think the biggest one they had. No, that's even WME too. Was the throwing of the monster cans.
Yeah, no. I mean the one before that, but before that he was still like, but not in the same way. I get what Stefano was saying. Not in the same way. I'm trying to think of anybody really.
Do you remember when? Yeah, Nick Diaz's antics comparatively weren't even that bad.
No, actually, I was listening to a podcast about some of the stuff Nick Diaz was suspended for and disciplined and sanctioned for, and there was like they should be ashamed of themselves. Like I would be like,
they were tame.
They tried to
I would be
suspend
with a
him.
Lawyer.
Yeah,
getting a case.
Some of the things the Athletic Commission did to him as well, like suspending the man 5 years for smoking a joint. You should be ashamed.
Yeah, no, I would be speaking to a lawyer and suing for like lost income because that's nuts.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, but like that's my point is that like I feel like my memory would lend to believe that WME, in comparison to the Fertittas, are kind of dropping the ball. And
I would have to check.
I mean, I would have to check too, but like I just think that like I feel like WME should kind of, be a sports organization and get this under check and try to control these guys. You have to remember the NBA had a drug problem in the 70s. They had a drug problem, right?
They still have a drug problem.
What kind of drugs?
Under wraps.
Like we're talking cocaine, we're talking meth, we're talking recreational drugs that were
Michael. They still have a drug problem. I know what you're saying. They still have a drug problem.
They do still have a drug problem.
I fail to see how it's a problem.
Right?
Hey,
let them
sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah, man. Let these giant super athletes who are making tens of millions of dollars have a little fun in their free time instead of,
No, but like I'm talking like
being mad because you can't afford those designer drugs. I'm not mad. Let them have fun.
Okay, but my point is that these were ruining careers. Like guys would like 1 year be all-stars and the next year average 5 points a game, and people were like, "What's happening?" Right?
That's fair.
And they were
use kids.
Actually, Andrew Wiggins' dad got popped for drugs too. So like it was a big problem. And when David Stern came into the league, he was like, the one thing we're gonna change is we're gonna have a drug policy. Boom. And then in the 90s and 2000s, the league ran smoothly. Now, I'm not saying the guys aren't still doing something behind closed doors, but what I am saying is they're testing, they're getting guys who are popped, and they have a policy, right?
Now, I'm gonna. Here's where I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit on that, because I think these kinds of drug policies are just an extension of the war on drugs in general. I don't think they're effective. I think they're meant to criminalize what should be not criminal behavior in the first place, and I think adults have the right to put these substances in their body. Now, maybe a better approach to that would have been drug counseling, awareness programs, but
they do have that. They do have that, in fairness.
But I'm sure it's not the kind of, progressive drug awareness programs that we'd like to see that advocate for responsible use, as opposed to, NBA players can go out and there's nothing stopping them from drinking as much alcohol as they want and, having a terrible season the next year, or any sports league for that matter.
Prescribed painkillers from their team doctor.
Yeah,
exactly.
ruining their kidneys. Like Alonzo Mourning has bad kidneys now because of how many painkillers he's put.
Or how about this? How about when it's the playoffs and the NBA players are injured and we're like, oh, suck it up, you got to perform.
Yeah,
Jordan played through the flu, so
yeah. But
exactly.
Meanwhile,
Sorry. I was going to say, meanwhile, some performance-enhancing drugs might actually help those players play a little bit better. But no, I'm
maybe
sorry.
Some heroin, yeah, why not?
Well,
okay.
Wait, whoa.
This is no longer a Christian podcast.
Okay. Before we get to that point.
But no, I think this actually also ties into our next topic.
But I just want to make sure that this is explained. I want to make sure I get this point in. Is the point I was trying to make towards the drug policy was not necessarily philosophy on whether or not they're doing a good job with the drug policy, but the point is that they have a rule in place. It doesn't seem like WME has rules in place. You know what I'm saying?
Well, actually, and that was going to be my counter. My counter is they do have rules in place. It's just being outsourced to USADA when it comes to a drug policy. In terms of what is performance.
Guys, not the drug policy. I'm talking about just when fighters mess up.
WME is not a sports. The problem is they're not a sports organization. They've never been a sports organization, and at the same time, let's not forget that WME is massively in debt right now. So they're sitting there crunching the numbers and saying, Jon Jones is one of our top 5 earners as far as pay-per-view draws, and we want to do what exactly?
Also,
when they're
why would
tens of millions?
Sorry, go on.
No. When they're tens of millions of dollars in debt, that's all I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, why is the onus on WME to make the decision? Because they're majority stakeholders.
I
agree with Mike that it should be on them. It should be on them. Yeah. No, I agree with Mike that's some more stringent standards for fighters.
They own a sports organization. This is the thing: is that they own a sports organization. They should run it like so. Right? It doesn't matter what their experience was. Yeah. It's what their experience is now. And they run a sports organization.
It seems like
to do this.
Yeah, for years the UFC has been kind of caught in between, trying to have their cake and eat it too, be both a sports organization and not, and be both, an entertainment business and a legitimate sports organization, and we'll have meaningless rankings and make fights like CM Punk and Mickey Gall just for the fans, but at the same time,
don't besmirch the good name of CM Punk.
CM who?
But yeah, look, in terms of the drug organization, it's been,
No, that's what I was gonna say. In terms of the drug policy, I think that the UFC has smartly, because they're not experts in drug policy, they smartly outsourced the problems to pretty much the experts pretty much the experts in anti-doping techniques, testing, analysis, and nope. I'll leave it there. That's it.
and subsequently, nearly ruin their organization in the process.
Sure, but you know what? Like, just in defense of USADA, can I just say this?
Okay, can I preamble this?
Sure.
No. Let David talk. Hold on.
Okay,
I want to see what he's going to say. How he can possibly defend
I'm
USADA.
sorry. I just want to make sure that people know what we're talking about before we.
Okay, go ahead.
Because USADA has been on a lot of people's nerves, and since we have nothing else to talk about and like more time to kill, we're asking if USADA is a good thing or a bad thing. Now, David, take it away. Go ahead.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. 1 second, boys.
Okay. Should I keep talking or?
Sure, go ahead. We're still recording.
Okay. Can I adjust the angle on this thing? Because my back is killing me. Oh, man. I don't like this angle. I look nuts. All right. So, yeah, essentially, USADA. Okay, yeah, no, so I think, for me, I'm completely neutral. Honestly, I did a little bit of thinking about it, and even though I don't necessarily, I would never necessarily take performance-enhancing drugs myself, just in defense of USADA, because I know a lot of people, with institutions in general, people like to rag on institutions, and when you're enforcing policies that invade privacy, you're always going to be the bad guys. So, I mean, that comes with the territory, so they know that. But what I will say, though, is that science is without politics. And for what I know, USADA try their hardest to do good science. What I don't enjoy and what I think the criticism is the follow-up of their science and the lack of acknowledgement about the uncertainty of their science. But at the end of the day, they were giving a mandate, which is to eliminate certain drugs from professional mixed martial arts. And they used the best technology that they could possibly find because they're well-funded and they have great experience doing this before. So you can't criticize the science. It's more, well, unless you guys have a background in like
I can definitely criticize the science.
Okay, please do.
So basically the only people USADA is catching nowadays are people coming off of the regional scene who are using not very effective methods of doping, very rudimentary methods of doping. They're not catching your stars. And even when they do, I would say my opinion is the greater task of USADA in general is a fool's errand. We don't want drug-free sports. We've never wanted drug-free sports.
Who says?
We say we.
Wait, who says that?
Look at the results that USADA has brought in since. We've seen more injuries, more canceled main events. We've seen careers completely derailed.
And I'm okay with that. Hold on a second. I'm okay with that. If you're doping and juicing, like, you know what I'm saying, to an absurd degree that you need drugs to be successful. Hold on a second. But if you're juicing to a degree that you need drugs to be successful and you're not successful after you take the drugs, okay, well, yeah, too bad.
And
like,
also, to counter that also, Stefano, that's confirmation bias, because if you want to do it the other way, since USADA is being implemented, or since the implementation of USADA, we've had mixed martial arts, UFC specifically, has become more mainstream. The pay-per-view numbers have gone higher than they've ever been.
No, not true. Neither of those are true. Number one,
how is that not true? That is not true. That's
not true at all.
That's just not true.
That's false. Like, there's no correlation. You don't have the numbers.
Its stock value has gone up. Like, I don't see how you could say that the company, that the sport in general hasn't.
Their pay-per-view numbers have not gone up.
Pay-per-view numbers on average have gone up for sure.
No. Incorrect.
All right. No. Where are the numbers to prove that they have?
I'm looking up the numbers right now.
Before I get into that, Mike, this is I think our attitude towards anti-doping right now is, again, an extension of the war on drugs. 100%. We have these ideas of athletes that steroids, and other performance-enhancing drugs, which admittedly do give an advantage, but like, so do any number of other things that athletes do to aid in recovery.
Of course.
I would rather see a sport in which we can determine what are safe levels of performance-enhancing drugs that athletes can and should be taking in order to extend their careers and help them repair. We expect these athletes to give their life, their bodies, and their brains and everything to these sports to give the best performances, and we ridicule them when we don't. And God forbid they take something, some kind of exogenous chemical that's going to help them repair their bodies, give them a longer career, better performances, and help them be healthier after they've retired. God forbid we do that. We ridicule them when they do that, even though everybody's doing it. And we know everybody's doing it. And they've been doing it for years since these things have been created. So I don't see what the big problem is.
So, okay, here's my thing. Here's my thing. I think we agree on the point that, like, you know, here's my thing. If the UFC outwardly said, okay, if we won't pop you for steroids if there's a certain amount that you take that's allowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone agreed to that. They all signed the contract and everyone was doing that. I don't think I'd have a problem. The problem I have is there are certain guys who are doing it because they know they'll get an advantage over guys who are not doing it, right?
And do you know who is doing it? Everybody.
No, that's not true because
I have sources that I can't disclose on there.
No, see, here's the thing. I have sources I can't disclose either that like says to me 50 to 60%, right?
I hear it's higher.
Fair.
And this comes from former UFC fighters.
But the point I'm trying to make is that what about the 40 or the 30%, right? That are not doing it, right?
Here's the thing. Here's the false dichotomy that presents. Those 40 to 30% can continue not to use if they choose not to. The only difference is that those people who are going to use under this new system are going to be able to do it more safely. They're going to have more reasonable levels of these drugs within their system. So
okay, so if you were to take away USADA,
wait, hold on. Why would they have more reasonable levels?
Because USADA will catch them if they go over a reasonable level.
It's easier to detect. Whereas there's certain
that's not
steroids,
necessarily solving the problem. That's just moving the goalpost. That's just moving the threshold.
Why is it a problem? Why is it a problem in the first place?
Because they've. Well, first of all, certain steroids are illegal. Number one. Number two.
Why?
Because
they are in this country.
They've been proven scientifically to have deleterious effects on your health.
Which one?
Yes. Look, I think no matter where you spin it. Look, I'm going to admit this. I think almost every opponent I face, with the exception of two, might have been doing something. Might have. I'm not.
Obviously, mine too, and I'm clean.
Right? But here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm trying to explain here. No matter how many ways you slice it, no matter what ways you turn it, right? It's drug abuse. Drug abuse is bad for you.
No.
I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far, Mike.
Guys,
I got to correct. Mike, there's a difference between drug use and drug abuse.
I agree.
And the line is,
of course.
If I have a drink of wine with dinner, that's different from me bagging 1240s in a parking lot at 4 a.m. when I should be looking after my family. There's also a difference between responsible steroid use to an extent where it's going to help repair my body. I
just also wanted to add too that sometimes steroid use is medically necessary. Like steroids aren't necessarily like a drug that are gonna. There's a reason they exist. Like there are cases where you actually need to take steroids in order to have long-term physical health.
But are we really gonna say that like a lot of these fighters need these drugs?
Hold on. I think in certain cases, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on, first of all, fighting or drug use or chemistry. But I think from what I know, in certain cases, let's say you have a debilitating injury or a long-term chronic injury, steroids are actually an effective way to treat not only the pain, but also the recovery.
Here's my counterpoint
guys,
to what you
should be mentioned. I did a video on this, and I was really in the camp of like steroids for recovery. But the problem I'm having is that like we're saying it's illegal, and the people who follow it almost get penalized for following.
That's the part I agree with. Yeah.
Good citizens, right? One, two. Hold on. Let me finish this point. Two, right? there are guys who are using it responsibly for the record, because they know if they don't use it responsibly, USADA's going to catch them, right? So, like, USADA's kind of, in that respect, kind of helping out, right? But, regardless of that, right, there are players who are using it responsibly, but then what about the guys who aren't? Like, let's be honest, Vitor Belfort was probably going to the gills about it, right?
Oh, you're going to the Vitor, eh?
Right? I'm just saying, right? Here I have a list of 61 guys. 61 guys. And by the way, that's not all of them. I took out guys who had tainted supplements. I took out guys who were using IVs. I took out guys who were doing recreational stuff. And I took out guys, when you look it up, right, they had some sort of, like, case, but, like, USADA still tagged them. 61 guys in the UFC who have popped for some sort of performance.
Hold on.
Also,
Okay, so
I
I've
want
got
to add
to
to
address
the previous
a lot
point,
of that.
Stefano.
Yeah, no, I got to address Mike's previous point. I got to address a couple of things. So first of all, you're the difference between necessity and what's optimal are completely different. Like, you're saying, is it medically necessary for some of these fighters, first of all, to use these steroids? Maybe, maybe not. But again, athletics isn't about what's necessary. It's about what's optimal. Is it necessary for a fighter to take zinc or CBD or any of these other compounds that are going to help in recovery? Not necessarily. Will it give them better performances and help them to function? Absolutely. Also, as far as, like, the wear and determining, like, that there's an immediate debilitating injury is one case. But what about the natural wear and tear that happens on the body over time as a fighter? You gave Vitor Belfort as an example. Vitor Belfort, whose mind is, still his mind functions perfectly as a fighter. He's able to make calculated decisions. He knows more technique than he's known his entire life, but his body's failing him. Don't you want to see a man like that be able to compete into his age?
No, that's a subjective.
He's
argument.
also
Argument.
at this point, if your body's failing you, maybe you should retire.
Yeah, that's an emotional argument. I'm not gonna have that one.
No, hold on. Maybe you shouldn't retire. Maybe the whole point of medical science is to prevent the breakdown of the human body, and that's our goal. We're trying to make human beings live longer and more and better. Like, look, why wouldn't you want to see someone like Vitor Belfort compete later?
Because, I can think of multiple reasons why doping is illegal, or the UFC has implemented such a USADA or such a strong anti-doping policy. First of all, marketability. People I agree with you, Stefano, actually. I think that there is a war on drugs or at least remnants of a war on drugs. I hope with our generation that changes, but I still think it's there.
And for the record, I personally agree with that. Like, I do agree.
For sure.
And I've made that point.
Yeah, no, but I think just that it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouths when they know that people they're supposed to be looking up to, people that they're supposed to be paying money for, are drug cheats. And whether
there's that word.
Sure, or drug users, not cheats. Drug users. I don't want to say cheats. You're right. Drug users, because and that the word cheat will come into my second point, but drug users, because I think people are just uncomfortable with drugs. There are plenty of drug users in many other sports, basketball, football, especially. I know that a lot of people in football are on a lot of shit, but sorry for swearing, guys.
A lot of feces.
But it doesn't matter because it's not in the public, and we're comfortable because we don't see it, and it's not marketed that way. I think with the UFC, because it's such an individualistic sport, it's a lot more personal, and there's a lot less blame to pass around when you take steroids. Number two, I also think that key specifically for the UFC, because I think this is a point that people forget when it comes to USADA, is that this is a UFC specific policy. There's many other organizations out there that do not test for specific steroids, and you're free to go compete in any of them. You just want to make as much money, because related to my first point, the marketability of not doing drugs makes your sport seem legitimate in the society's eyes. For example, that's why we have an Olympic, which, don't get me wrong, it's ridiculous and it's farcical and it's corrupt and blah, 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 blah. But that's why the Olympics, the anti-doping policy has been a huge part of the history of the Olympics, that so far that they're erasing records. So I think those are two really big reasons why USADA is, I don't want to say a good thing, but it's almost a necessary evil for the growth and development. And then the third point I wanted to make, lastly, and I know this is a really minor point, but if you actually check the numbers, in 2014, the year before USADA, the UFC had 264,500 pay-per-view buys on average. 2015, the year of USADA, 578.
No, so you're hold on. So you're gonna correlate that directly. You're gonna correlate.
No, I'm not correlating it directly. You said no. I just said
you're
something.
You're just throwing it out there and hoping people make that.
No. But he's not doing that. But what he's saying is that like you were also kind of throwing it out there that the USADA because USADA had no correlation. The point is we don't know.
I didn't say it had no correlation. I'm saying in the long run, it hurt people by canceling main events, by shortening careers.
But the whole point is that it didn't cancel the business.
Correlation. That's just confirmation bias.
No, it's not confirmation bias. No, look at the numbers.
No.
What
about the events that were made because of USADA?
The events that were made because of USADA, that makes no sense.
Because one person dropped out, for example.
Look into the numbers of how many main events have dropped off since USADA came into play. It's massive. USADA is not about protecting fighters. It's not about ensuring clean sport. It's about the UFC protecting its interests. That's it.
I'm agreeing with you.
I'm agreeing with that. But what my point is, of course, it's
There's been a massive.
But the point is that
drop off.
But I think
a drop off in what? Wait, hold on. There's been a massive drop off in what? I gotta hear that.
There's been a massive increase in fighters dropping out of main events and injuries. Fighters falling due to injuries since USADA. You can look up the numbers.
That's fine.
I believe that.
That's fine. But that doesn't mean that as a whole the business has dropped off because of it.
I didn't say dropped off. But I'm saying it's hurt them in the long run. I fundamentally think it has.
But I don't know how
they're more profitable than they've ever been. And I'm not saying it's because of USADA or not, but they are more profitable. They have more deals. They have more sponsorships. They're more into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like what I'm saying is from a monetary perspective, from a financial perspective, there's no way to tell either or. My thing is that.
Wait, hold on.
Sure there is. There is.
There's also talks of MMA being like an Olympic sport. Like
there's talk
that is never going to happen. That is never going to happen.
I think you're going to be very surprised.
MMA will never be an Olympic sport, but that's a different topic.
We should toss that one up.
See, here's our asked question. Our asked question later down we're going to talk about is about if UFC or MMA should be in NCAA. If it should be in the NCAA. So,
no.
But that's a question I got today. That was a question I got not today, but I got on Monday. So this is. The point I'm trying to make is that it's as mainstream as it's ever been. Is it because of USADA? I don't know. No, I don't know. But you cannot say it's not because of USADA, right?
I'm not saying it's not because of USADA. I'm saying USADA has been more of a hindrance to the sport overall.
We don't know that. There's no way you know that.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you. More fighters have dropped out due to injury. I'll pull up the numbers right now.
That's
still
fair.
Look at the results, though. Still look at the results.
I'm saying that of course the UFC is going to experience growth. They've got big stars. They're putting together big fights. They've established their brand like to be the number one. They are mixed martial arts. They're synonymous with mixed martial arts.
A fighter pulling out is automatically because of steroids.
They're going to grow over.
Hold on a second. But
no, wait, hold on. Let me finish making my point. Of course, they're going to continue to grow. They're synonymous with mixed martial arts, and the competition isn't even close. That they've begun this process of homogenization like far before 2014 in the USADA deal. USADA was a play to gain liquidity to get the immediate sale of the UFC to WME. It to give
IMG.
That's IMG, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's not a long-term play. It was a short-term play by what was the name of the previous owner of the company?
The Fertitta.
Disagree so strongly. I think it is definitely a long-term play.
USADA? How so?
Not necessarily the company. The organization, I should say. I think the principle of anti-doping policy is a long-term play from the UFC, and it's a smart play because I think that's the most marketable thing out, like the most marketable way forward.
But even from my perspective,
like it's not. This isn't pro wrestling. Like it isn't scripted, so it's going to be sanctioned. Like it just long term. It's just like the only way forward.
Look, I just think that from my perspective, if there was a way to kind of like say, okay, here's the line of how many drugs you can take theoretically. I'm not a chemist, I don't know, but if there's a line, then I think that's and people were like, at this line, hold on, David, let me just say this. At this line, there's no like long-term damage, there's no this. If there was a way to do that in some ideal, perfect world where everything was candy and rainbows, then like, yeah, I'd be open to that.
There absolutely is a way to do that.
Stefano, how?
To determine safe levels of steroids within your body? Are you kidding me? Like, okay, you're saying there's not a way. Hold on. You're saying there's not a way to determine what's a safe level of a certain drug to have. That's what chemists are doing every single day.
Man, don't do that. Hold on, because
that's a long established science.
No, it's not. Steroids have changed.
They're safer than they've ever been.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're not safer than they've ever been, but they're also way more advanced.
And I'm not saying steroids. I wasn't saying steroids.
You don't know the long-term. It doesn't even have to be steroids.
We do.
But like the research is not there yet, where we know long-term effects, where we know everything is going on.
Dude, right? These are the same arguments people would use against the legalization of marijuana. We don't know the long-term effects.
Marijuana had
hold on.
No. These are the same arguments.
This is actually a topic that I'm a little bit of like knowledgeable about. Like, no, for sure.
Me too.
No, man, you know the vibes. But anyway, this is a Christian podcast, though. This is a Christian podcast.
Listen, man, I'm saying
this is the marijuana.
But you're using the same. You're using the same arguments that and these aren't arguments based on science or logic. These are arguments based on inertia. The exact same arguments that kept weed and other drugs legal and maintained the drug war. We don't know. Wait, hold on. We don't know the science. We don't know the long-term effects. So what do? You need more science and more testing, and you need examples in which what we don't need is to shove our drug problem, which we clearly have, under the rug into the black market.
You're definitely I'm not even talking about like.
But you're misunderstanding my point too. That's not my point. My point is that we don't know yet. So why are we allowing it to happen only for trouble to take place?
First of all, mixed martial arts
and for other people who are not doing it, who are being good soldiers, to then be penalized for it by losing to guys who are doping.
By the way, I don't have the science in front of me about the long-term effects, but to be honest, I don't think you guys do either. So I don't think you can say that we don't know the long-term effects of steroid use, healthy steroid use.
First of all,
that's exactly the point. Because I don't have the science, I don't know. Sorry, David, I'm keep cutting you.
No, I was going to say the steroids is
you
just
can't say we don't know.
Steroids, well, we specifically don't know because we're not chemists and we're not experts on steroids. And I think steroids is a broad category for a variety of different kinds of performance. And some of them not even performance enhancing, a variety of different kinds of
some of them aren't even steroids either.
Drugs.
Some of them aren't even steroids either, like erythropoietin, EPO, what T.J. Dillashaw tested positive for.
Yeah, but like EPO is really super dangerous, though. That's a thing that like people know is that like it can be super dangerous.
Yeah, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous when you're taking the level that cyclists like Lance Armstrong were taking it in. But there's a safe level of EPO that you can't.
No, but that's the problem. That's my thing is that we think we know the level, but we really don't know the level.
Right.
Because EPO is used as a medical drug.
Sure, under specific medical conditions, but I'm kind of agreeing with you in that we haven't had. First of all, to go back to my original point, mixed martial arts is such a new sport still. It is less than 35 years old, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Okay.
1995, 2020.
So that's to include Vale Tudo in Brazil.
No, we're not including that. We're not including that.
Or pancreation.
If we want to include like my uncle's like scrapping in the backyard, like sure, then we can include it then too.
That's been 1,000 years old. No,
your barbecue is
organized mixed martial arts. It's not that old.
It's been a lot of fun.
So I feel like this is just one of the growing pains that any new sports is gonna experience, is that in order to gain, once again I keep going back to this legitimacy thing, because I think it's what do you value in, or what does the society which pays money, which is the fuel for your sport growing, what do they value? And we as a society have been on an anti-drug policy from the get-go. Well, at least since the 80s, and we don't have to go there, but for a long time anyway. But that's to say that I just think that moving forward, I don't think USADA is going anywhere. Maybe not the specific organization, but I think like the principle of drug testing is not going anywhere. And I think it's dangerous to say that, oh, well, we don't know, so why don't we just let them out and let them bang it out? We'll see if some people. I'm just saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's what you're saying.
No, but I'm trying to say that I'm
not arguing from a position of ignorance. I'm not saying we don't know.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that I agree that we should test it, and I agree that we should understand what are safe levels, and only then should we allow it. But yeah, I just think that has to be done under controlled conditions.
I gotta be honest.
I think people who don't even know they're competing against people who are doing drugs.
Well, yeah, that's why you make it legal. And I gotta be honest. I think we have the answers to a lot of these questions, but I'm not an expert on endocrinology, so.
I don't think from what I know about drugs is that they're constantly advancing.
Hold on, but we can bring one on the podcast if you'd like, because I have some friends who know quite a bit about this stuff and have studied it at like a master's PhD level, and they'd be more than willing to lend their expertise.
Sure, I'm down. Like, let's make some calls.
Even then, I mean, that's only like, even if you have an advanced degree, that only means that you are an expert in maybe one. Let's say like there's 120 steroids. Just for example, you're an expert in like one of 120.
No. Okay. That means you're privy. That means you're privy to the most advanced research, the most cutting edge research. That means you're able to read.
One doctor will tell you one thing, and another doctor will tell you another, and another doctor.
No, hold on. This is a way of dismissing. This is a way of dismissing evidence.
No, but Stefano,
you're sowing the seeds of doubt before you even heard what the person has to say.
Stefano, you have to understand. I am super like we've had this argument before off closed doors. You know how super like perspective I am about this. I'm just saying that like we cannot. My only thing is we cannot like make it legal just because we haven't. We think we know something. We have to have definitive answers, right? That we are willing to do. Not even definitive.
Actually, I disagree with that.
But my point is that we need to be very, very careful, right? And USADA, one of the things that it's allowing fighters to do, at the very least, is be very careful. But the other thing it's doing is that it's allowing guys who are being good soldiers and are following rules, just on the fact that they are following rules, to not be penalized for following the rules.
I disagree.
Can I also just say one more thing? And then I think I'm done pretty much having it, because I don't think I have much more to add. But the UFC, first of all, you are allowed to do.
David, you're cutting out. You're cutting out.
You're allowed to do.
I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry, I was going to say that you're allowed to do PEDs in many other organizations all across the world. We're just talking about the UFC, which is the premier fighting organization out there. Until it is no longer in the UFC's interests to drug test, they will continue to drug test. So we as a society all have to either think like Stefano, or they're going to continue to drug test. And I really think that's it. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's fair or not fair. That isn't how these things are judged, or how these decisions are made. Pardon?
I would agree, and I think that's why we need more voices in the conversation like my own, more people that are willing to speak up in favor of healthy, responsible drug use within sports. And that's the same way that we went from, I think 12% of the population supporting marijuana legalization in the 60s up to like, in the States, I think it's around hovering just below 70% at the moment, right? More people need to open up. More good faith science needs to be done. More people need to speak out.
I would like to hear what the science will say about it.
Me too.
So I can arrange for some very knowledgeable people to come on the podcast and give us
maybe we'll come up with like some questions, and then they can record like a video of response, and then we'll discuss responses.
Sure, I'm with you guys. Like,
yeah, I think that'd be healthy and productive for our viewers and for us. So,
but like I think that USADA, what they do like that, like I do think USADA is still ultimately a good thing, because it forces us to have these conversations anyway.
No, I'm not rolling. I don't like conversations about good and bad.
I think the execution has been pretty bad. I think that I think we can all agree execution has not been good, right? execution of USADA has not been good, especially when it comes to their stars. It's like, tell me how Jon Jones won't get a suspension for having something in his system.
It's not being perfect, but I want to put myself in their position and say, could I have done a better job? And I'm not sure I could. That's the honest answer. I'm not an expert though. That's like
sure, but I mean, we can, even though we're not drug policy experts and we're not, none of us are going to go and create our own rival anti-doping agency. I think we can still from the outside pick up
same way, Stefano.
Oh, you would have
done it the exact same way. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
All I'm saying is
I'm going to press F to pay respects.
Yeah. Sorry?
I said I will press F to pay respects.
But like, okay, we're not going to get anywhere with this argument, but I still maintain my position. Fair
enough.
Agree to disagree?
Mike maintains his strict, hardline, right-wing Republican attitude towards drugs.
Man.
I just think,
honestly,
Mike.
When I was talking to Mike, about the war on drugs once, and I'm like, Mike, it's draconian. They're putting, a ton of innocent kids in jail for just smoking a joint. He's like, you know what they're doing? They're smoking weed. They're turning the frogs gay. That's word for word.
Yo, he had that conversation with you too?
Yeah, isn't that
correct? I was like, Mike, you
can't
don't
have
know
gay frogs. I'm sorry. We just can't have them.
What's in the water in Ghana, man? Jeez.
Fluoride. It's fluoride.
It's fluoride, man. They're against gay frogs, number one. Two, their jollof rice sucks. Jeez.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Wow. It's because of the...
Oh.
Wow.
Yo, hold on. I'm gonna throw some shade at Mike really quick. So, do you know what this guy said, David?
What did he say?
And Christian said this. We'll get Christian on here at some point too. He's too funny not to have on. But they said that Nigerian jollof rice is the worst jollof rice. They said Christian even cited a competition where all African countries had their jollof rice tested and compared. And they said that Nigerian jollof rice ranked last and Ghanaian jollof rice first. So I'd just like you to respond to that.
They had a bad night. They did have a bad night, in fairness. I'm not saying it's the worst. Listen, but they did come in last place.
I throw shade for jokes. I throw shade for jokes. When the chips are down, you know where Mike's opinions stand on your jollof rice. So
it's not as good as Ghanaian jollof rice. I don't know what to tell you. Like what? This is an undisputable fact.
I'm a big fan of Ghana, obviously, but this is just further proof of how people around Africa just have a general just jealousy for Nigeria. That they hold things like jollof rice as important. How about we compare economies? Let's go there.
Whoa!
Anyway, everybody knows that everybody in West Africa that Nigeria is the place to be. So we'll just leave it there. Nigeria for life. Super proud. You know how we do.
I don't think you've ever been to Accra.
This.
I'm just leave it at that.
I will say this: the Nigerian economy, relative to other African countries, is doing quite well right now.
Yeah, but that's not saying much, though. That's not saying much.
No.
And they're about to go in lockdown, so it's about to be a wrap.
It's true, but given this pandemic situation doesn't wreak too much havoc, Africa's in for a big economic boom within this century, from what I've heard. What, you think I'm joking?
No, it's not. It's just that it's a century. That's 100 years.
Yeah, man.
No, I know, but I'm saying I'm predicting these kinds of large economic changes don't happen overnight, right?
You mean the last century?
No, within this century. No, I'm dead serious. I'm not joking.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I hear you. It's just that it's a long ass time.
Not even that. No. It's just like the logical progression. Obviously.
I know for sure, but
it's about time. I'm not even impressed with that. It's more, I need everybody to be on the same level playing field. Well, this is turning into a really political podcast.
Guys,
kind of like if last
an hour and 13 in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so should we answer the fan question? Do a little fan service?
Yeah, let's go fan first.
Okay. Sure. Let's do the fan thing.
I just wanted to say one thing because there's one news story you guys might have missed. Two very important ones. Mm-hmm. Number one, Joe Rogan said that if UFC 249 takes place, he will not call the event.
Yeah, I saw that.
And The second one do you guys want to talk about that a little bit, or is that?
I really
Quick
don't
note on
at
that.
all.
Of course he won't, because the UFC is being super irresponsible about it. With that being said, if it goes on, I'm watching.
Yeah,
Oh,
man,
I
I
think
don't
we
care.
all
I don't care at all.
And the second big point of I want to throw some shade at Ashley Evans Smith, if you guys know who that is.
Yes.
Caught stealing medical supplies. So, like $6 would say, waste man of the week.
Can I just say something? And I know this isn't a political podcast, but in America, people are still paying for their COVID-19 tests. I'll just leave it there.
That is crazy. That is insane.
Leave it there.
I don't know how any first world nation cannot have subsidized healthcare.
Yeah, like it's a right. Well, we'll leave it there. So I don't want to criticize anybody cheating the medical system in the U.S. because it's set up to be cheated.
I'm just saying, it's just such an embarrassing look.
I agree.
You know, it's just...
America, get your crap together, elect Bernie Sanders while you still have a chance. So, not to get political, but what the hell is cheese?
Yeah, no, we're getting mad political, straight up like, this is who you should vote for.
Yeah.
In other news, let's talk about the Democratic primaries. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, really.
Oh, don't make me go off.
No,
don't make me go off.
We are not doing that.
I will go off if you get me started on the primaries.
We will not do that. We will not do that. Although Biden took it when he got Carolina. Just saying. When he got the Carolinas, he took it.
Did he get the Carolinas, or did the DNC rig it in his favor? Interesting.
Okay,
fan service.
To the Ask Question segment.
Yeah, really, man. Jeez. Whoa.
Because this show basically amounts to us doing a bunch of cheap fan service.
It is true. It is true. Shake your you-know-what for the money. Okay, so the Ask Question session or segment, the question was posed. Actually, I got page. The leg kick 1@gmail.com. That's where you should go if you want your questions to be read. But we'll make an exception. Comes from my homeboy Zach. So he asked, should there be MMA in college or high school, like NCAA sports, youth sports in Canada, et cetera, et cetera? I thought it was interesting. I think it's an interesting question.
I agree.
Yeah.
Interesting. Sorry.
I'll just have once again, I don't think about these opinions too much, so I'll just give you my casual opinion. Yeah, I don't see why not, as long as you pay the athletes and cover their medical expenses. That's
the big thing. I think with prize fighting, athletes deserve to get paid, and I think the NCAA has an abominable record of just exploiting. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're sucking these poor kids dry for everything that they have, and making them work for free essentially. And the free tuition argument, I don't buy it. Like.
Trust me, I've had plenty of education. It's not worth as much.
No, exactly. Yeah,
not worth as much as you think.
And not to mention, not to get all political again, but in the United States, where they supposedly can't afford subsidized healthcare, the NCAA, like the individual organizations, sports organizations, are subsidized to the tune of tens of millions of dollars each.
Oh yeah,
financially successful organizations. So I think, given their poor track record, maybe it might not be the best look. And I mean, schools have a tendency not to advocate for combat sports anyways. Like, boxing's been around forever, and it's been far more popular than it is today. Think of like the 1920s. And for whatever reason, wrestling, there's another one, but for some reason,
it's in the NCAA.
Wrestling isn't the NCAA, but something about strikes to the head and, academic institutions, people seem to be a little bit uncomfortable with those two things being paired together. But it is an interesting thought experiment. What do you think, Mike?
Well, to me, I think, like, you know how, like, amateur MMA doesn't pay the athletes, right? And I'm not saying they should. That's not my thing, right? But, like, why not have, MMA in NCAA work like, or, collegiate athletics work like the amateur scene, right? Like, why not have it like you wear like, I'm not saying headgear per se, but you wear protective. But like,
because headgear doesn't do anything to prevent brain trauma.
There you go.
That's not science argument here. I mean, to appease the
okay, but like, why not
fans.
have protective, like heavy protective gear? Like, let's say instead of like what ounce they use in the UFC? I think 6 or 4.
Yeah.
Why not make it 6 or 8 in amateur? and wear shin pads and wear like knee pads and then make it more of a point fighting thing in the NCAA.
I have an answer for that because that would look horrible.
It would, but like I guess. But my point is that why not have it work like the amateur scene in the collegiate scene in collegiate athletics, right? Still have your amateur leagues here and there, like your War of Gods and your whatever, you know what I'm saying, and your MFLs.
War of Gods.
Shout out to War of Gods, right? But have it, still have your MFLs and your War of Gods, right? Almost like your club wrestling scene, and then have your collegiate MMA scene be your like collegiate amateur scene. You get what I'm saying? And then make it work like that.
I don't think the NCAA or those organizations would ever bite. I think it's interesting though.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't see why they won't try it.
If it gets popular enough, I can see them doing it.
I mean,
everything is driven by the
just
market.
Have it be your amateur, right? Have it be amateur. I'm not saying pro mixed martial arts should happen in collegiate athletics, but amateur mixed martial arts, I can see it.
Do you think though I think I agree they should get paid, absolutely.
But I think they should get paid in amateur mixed martial arts too, like like that's
100%. No, but my big reason why I don't think they would do it, and I'm not necessarily saying it would be bad or good for the sport either way. It might be good for it, might give it a lot more attention. But my reasoning for why they might not do it is with these recent studies on CTE and brain trauma. I don't know that the NCAA and those other organizations would be running to necessarily get into a sport with as negative perception as fighting. It's like fighting, I think, is really, as much as MMA has become more mainstream, I still don't think it's a part of the zeitgeist. And
I agree.
And I don't think it ever will be. I don't think
Stefano.
we would want it to be.
I definitely agree, but look at football, man. That's not something. Like college football is more popular than ever. So
sure, yeah, but I agree, but college football is a part of the zeitgeist and always has
tradition.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if it becomes part of the zeitgeist, which I think more and more, we're getting a better cultural understanding of what MMA is, and I think it's starting to. Oh my goodness, I hate when I use words like permeates. First of all, I want to put a rule of the number of syllables we're allowed to use on words on this podcast, and I think we should top it at 3.
I agree. This is a Christian podcast, therefore it's lowbrow. We can't be using $5 words.
Whoa! Why do we have to be so
We're gonna take that one out. We're gonna take that one out. That was bad.
Gotta go a little bit slower for the Christian fans here. Okay.
We're gonna take that out.
Guys,
I can't remember my point anymore. I just think wait, what was my point?
No more $5
MMA,
words.
CTE.
No. That football is still popular, and it's more college football is more popular than ever. So I think as soon as MMA becomes not as popular as football, because I don't think in America anything's going to be
it'll ever get there.
But even we have college like lacrosse, which is not a combat sport, but it's this violent. We have college hockey here in Canada, and fights break out all the time, and it's part of the culture.
Less so, actually. In hockey, the amount of fights that have been happening has gone way down. Yeah, it's almost not even a part of the sport anymore.
But it's still a contact sport, and it's still a sport where CTE is a worry. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I don't see, look, whether athletes should get paid or not paid in amateur athletics is not my point, right? But my point is that
point. That's the most important point. That's the only point that counts.
That's the only point.
Hold on. But it's just simply the question is, should there be MMA in college or high school? I would incline to say yeah, because I think one of the biggest issues is that even when you're in amateur athletics in MMA without collegiate, right, without collegiate as support, it's pretty hard to sustain. You see a lot of great talents just stop because they can catch more quick money elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So why not have it you go to your local school, you try out for your local MMA, your MMA team, and you guys have two welterweights, two whatever, two of each division, and you go to a meet. You go to an MMA meet,
so
right?
I'm not gonna.
I think there's something there to streamline it where you can get more athletes who can't necessarily afford MMA classes, who can try out at the amateur for a while, for 4 years, and if it works out for them, then boom, the UFC knows that they can kind of look at these guys to watch.
Yeah,
right? I think it's a good idea.
I'm not going to come out in favor or against it, but I will say one thing that I do agree with you on that level. And I think another thing that it would systematize as well is it would systematize training methods as well, which I think is much needed in mixed martial arts. I think if you introduce it into the school system, you're going to see the regularity of training methods go up, right? Sure. More consistency
and
across
not to
the
mention
board.
just even the economy of like coaches.
Yeah, and I think that'd be a good thing because I feel like in a lot of ways MMA in that regard is still in the Stone Age. Like,
sure, we'll definitely see some kind of like a licensing structure pop up for sure for coaches.
Right, and then you're going to see more wrestling coaches come out the woodwork, more jiu-jitsu guys be part of collegiate payrolls, more, you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
like
and you know what?
Coaches.
Mike, if they want to step up, we'll smash them all. Won't we?
Right, but my point is that you're gonna start seeing more proliferation of guys having more avenues to go to. We talked about, like, remember a couple weeks ago with Diego Sanchez, what's he gonna do next, right? Well, you know, if MMA was in college or high school, that would be an avenue for it, right?
No, I'm not rolling with that because first of all, a lot of these guys drop out of high school to do MMA in the first place. So that's number one. It's always been, and not to say that it shouldn't be in college sports, but it's always been seen as kind of an outsider sports in that if you don't get the grades to participate in varsity sports, this is another way that your athleticism can translate. MMA and boxing are supposedly good for that. And I also think that just because... No, you know what? That's my point. We'll leave it there. I'm tired.
What do you guys? I got a question. Should have had that tea, man. What do you guys think would be the potential negative side effects of including mixed martial arts into a school system? Because we've talked a lot extensively about the positives or the barriers to entry of that kind of system, but do you see any negatives if that system were to take place? Obviously, it's hard to say without the data, but just spitballing here.
I can maybe see like just head trauma being a real issue if you're starting with kids early. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the brain is still developing at 18. I don't care what anyone says.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right? But then again, I'm 24 and like you can make the argument the brain's still developing at 24 and I've already had, like in total 6 Muay Thai fights, 3 Jiu-Jitsu competitions and an amateur MMA competition fight. So like,
well, jiu-jitsu doesn't cause brain trauma, but
it doesn't. But my point is that like, I'm already like kind of in, knee deep in combat sports. So like, is it really an argument to say that like, maybe at 18 you're starting somebody too early? That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a way to go about it, but maybe. Do you know what I'd like to see? Which I think it would be an interesting middle ground, because I think as far as getting mixed martial arts into NCAA or any school system, good luck. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that a good middle ground, especially in Canada, where we don't have as developed a wrestling program, but we have very sophisticated jiu-jitsu up here. I would like to see jiu-jitsu introduced into the school system in Canada, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we already have a competition, a competition scene where fairly regular tournaments are held. I'd like to see schools start producing teams and start coming out to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions in that way for it to become that kind of a sport in Canada where we have a feeder system. And I think that alone would benefit mixed martial arts inexorably. I think it would benefit mixed martial arts. I think it would benefit the state of Jiu-Jitsu in Canada. And it's a good middle ground where you can sell to schools as, hey, these kids aren't getting brain trauma doing this, but they're building confidence and learning how to defend themselves and competing, having fun. And ultimately, I think you'd see less bullying in schools as well, but that's kind of just my opinion.
No, that's just an opinion. I can think of 3 reasons.
that you'd see more bullying?
No, I mean, I don't know if you'd see more or less. I don't think there's much like statistics to show that martial arts reduces or increases bullying. I think that's just one of those like social things we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better in the martial arts community.
Give me a second.
Yeah, man. The light again.
Mike, step into the light. This is a Christian podcast.
I thought you said it was a storm.
All right. Well,
see, he lied about the storm. So I told you.
Yeah, like I see like sunshine.
Now but it cleared up. The storm was there before, now it's cleared up. Okay, keep talking.
We can see now. No. We can see now that the Emperor wears no clothes. Mike claims it's raining outside. It's actually sunny, and he expects us to play along. Exactly. Mike, I'm not doing this. Okay.
Ruthless.
But no, I think Brazil. What do you think about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the school system? Because I think it would be good. Just as a personal example, I feel like had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or even wrestling been in school, I would have done it, and I think it would have done me a world of good. I think there are a number of kids who feel left out by conventional sports who, this idea appeals to them a lot more than, me big brutish football player, me knock head into other man head.
Hilarious. Well, first of all, there's many different varsity sports. There's Quidditch teams. Really popular.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, don't rip on the Quidditch, dude. You're just talking about
I know sports. You're from the United Kingdom, so you love your Quidditch.
Oh, wow.
But stop.
Dude, you're from the United Kingdom?
Yeah.
He's Scottish.
Yeah. We can talk about that off the pod. Anyway.
Are you actually Scottish?
I lived in Scotland for a long time, yes.
Aye, laddie.
Yeah.
All right, that's what podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Two accents now. I can't even remember my point, guys. Oh,
school
goodness.
System. Quidditch. Yeah, first of all, I'm not the golden snitch. Thank you very much.
Hilarious.
But,
my point was going to be that I think at the end of the day, I don't see anything wrong with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the school system. I don't think there's anything, but my point is, I'm not sure there's maybe the less CTE, maybe that's a benefit, but I'm not sure there's much fundamentally different between that and a school-sponsored martial arts club or a karate club, which I know a lot of schools already do.
That.
So competition, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu provides an avenue for competition.
Then it has to be a varsity sports, which you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
The organization of the sport.
No, I'm saying
that's going to take. And to somebody who's had the privilege of covering college sports in Canada, funding. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Funding for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well,
any martial arts. I generally think that collegiate sports in Canada is underfunded, and
just to speak from history, they tried doing Taekwondo and karate in collegiate. And it failed miserably just because they didn't have the money.
So but Mike, we're talking about real sports first of all. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Taekwondo is not.
You said martial arts.
Sorry. Yeah, real martial arts. Real martial arts.
Yeah,
but my point is that if it's gonna work, let's assume in a perfect world that they do get the money and funding. Where is going to be the issues for MMA 1 and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 2?
Mike,
I don't necessarily see it. I think where you would get the biggest issue with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, though, is I think even in MMA too is there's almost that journey that a lot of people go through, the fighter's journey, where they go around different organizations and they come to the UFC. Some come at 30, some come at 22, some come at. I think when you do that, you almost create this NBA issue. Well, not an issue, but this NBA dynamic where guys have to go into the NCAA to be, considered good. I can see that being a problem maybe 20, 30 down the years. 20, 30 years down the road.
No, that's different. That's different because that's the NBA has a specific policy which you can enter unless because you can technically enter the NBA if you don't go to university. So
of course.
But you can just go play somewhere else, what's his name, Brandon Knight, for example. There's many examples. But the difference here, and thank you for saying that, because we can just look at soccer, which is a sport I think I know well. In the UK, all over Europe, really, really popular. Even played at the university level. And they have organized soccer teams. And they're university produced, but at the end of the day, the corporations are going to attract the best talent, and it's going to be private youth academies and private youth teams that are going to have the best talent, and that's going to be how people get to the pros for the most part. So,
well, I'd like to just quickly object to something you said. While it is vastly popular, soccer isn't a real sport. But
oh, not true. I think 3 billion people, 3 billion watchers globally will disagree with you. But go on.
Man, we're definitely Stefano's definitely gonna get some people.
Hilarious.
Send your hate mail to thelegkick1@gmail.com.
Yeah, at Stefano. And just quickly, before you go on, Stefano, Michael, remember when we used to devote a third of this podcast to soccer? Only for Stefano to come on and say, you know what, this is actually not a real sport, so whatever.
Hey, neither is darts or golf. But,
that was funny. Billiards.
All right.
I'd just like to quickly address something Mike said earlier about them trying Taekwondo and karate and incorporating into the school system. I think the big difference now is that martial arts has never been more popular than it is at this moment.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Like
my whole point is just
the timing might not have been right.
Super important.
Funding is important. I agree. Funding is super important.
That's all I'm saying.
Funding, and I also think that let's not be naive about it. Schools are scared of lawsuits. If there's something that every education institution hates the most, it's lawsuits from mad parents, PO'd parents, if you know what I mean. So
sure, but
they're going to do everything to avoid that. Everything. And don't get me wrong, you can sign a waiver, you can blah, 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 but that's not going to do anything.
I agree, but I think if you can do it for wrestling, you can do it for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I would argue is safer than wrestling.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, whatever the market dictates, they're going to do.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I'm going to be reluctant to see the negative arguments because I absolutely do have a dog in this fight.
Yeah, for sure. But also, you can also argue that that's not necessarily... Oh, is Michael gone, or is he still there?
Mike is frozen.
Okay, it was frozen for me.
Sorry.
You can argue that the function of academic institutions is not to further sporting or athletic interests. So
you could.
It's not in their interest to have mixed martial arts just because it's a popular sport and more people want to participate and they feel marginalized from other athletics. Like, who cares? That's not what universities are there for. If you want to do that, go join an athletic club.
I suppose that's fair. I would argue at the high school level, the function of academic institutions is to raise kids, right?
Okay.
And I think in a number of ways, our institutions have failed to do that properly, right? And failed to prepare them for the real world. But
hot take.
I don't think there's many people that would disagree with me on that one. But yeah, I don't know. I think sports in general are a great way to build character and build a more well-rounded human being, more disciplined, better able to function in the world and more successful. And ideally, I think that's how we should be seeing our academic institutions.
Stefano, I 100% agree with you. But if you know anything about policy and how it functions in public institutions, you'll then have an opposing party that'll be like, oh, okay, so why does martial arts get funded, but my library club didn't get funded?
Yeah.
The Dungeons and Dragons Club has been criminally underfunded for years.
Yeah, the Dungeons and Dragons Club. That's definitely
Stefano once was a librarian.
Actually, no, librarian's the incorrect term because I would need a PhD to be a librarian. But I did work on a library, York University Library, as a stacker, and it was one of the best jobs I ever had.
Yeah, this is how I met him, actually. He would come on this lunch break to the local jiu-jitsu class at Martial Arts Club, and we thought we knew jiu-jitsu, and then he came in here and showed us that we didn't.
Wow.
That's
the librarian.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is that the TV show or the movie, The Accountant? Have you guys watched that movie? I think it's
yeah.
Oh yeah. That's with.
Are you calling Stefano? Are you saying Stefano is autistic? Is that?
No, that's not what that show is about.
I mean, the jury's still out on my neurotypical brain, but I assure you.
I love that word, neurotypical. Okay, all right. Do we have another topic? Because we're creeping up in 2 hours now.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. So, let's see.
There was.
You can do one of mine. We don't have to do both of them. I feel like that.
Oh, you have a top? Okay, never mind. I'll shut my mouth now.
Oh no, wait. What's your topic, Stefano? It's probably better.
Oh, I just had a little story I wanted to tell.
Oh,
but
yes.
All right. Okay, let's save the top 5 heavyweights and light heavyweights for next week because
that's going to take way
one
too
and
much
2.
time.
We will go forever if we talk about that.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wanted to tell a little story if you guys, but I can save it.
No, tell it.
All right, we have time.
Story time.
1 minute,
Uncle Steph.
Uncle Steph. I'm that creepy uncle downing 40s.
Yeah. Sitting on us on both knees. Jeez, that is an image. Jeez.
Hey, the cream goes in the coffee, boys. That's all I'm gonna say.
Jeez.
This is Mike's like, this is a Christian.
There's nothing Christian about that.
I just asked the Catholic Church. I'm sure there's plenty Christian.
We've been very Christian.
The Catholic Church would disagree. So
I'm Protestant, right? But anyway, okay.
Hey,
it makes a difference, man.
Yeah, Protestants or not, the Catholic Church is still responsible. But I digress.
That is really funny. That's a deep history joke, and I like it.
So I'm glad you picked up on that. I was going to tell a little story about something that happened to me in Cuff, and I don't even think Mike knows this story.
All right, tell a story.
So Cuff
should we have like a theme song, like Story Time with Steph? Story Time with Steph.
Get my own theme song. So Cuff is this promotion down in Trinidad. Shout out to Sensei Adam, who runs a tight ship over there. Great promotion. They're actually coming to Toronto. Going to be hosting some events here. Ideally, if this whole COVID thing resolves itself, they'll be having events during Caravana. They want to have a mixed martial arts event, which would be crazy.
Sign me up for that.
Oh, sign me up for that too. I'll make my pro debut on that card. I'll spank another Trinidaddy. But yeah. So I went down there. I won my first title with Cuff. Actually, I won their lightweight title, and it's trip to Trinidad is a wonderful country if you've never been. Beautiful, beautiful weather, beautiful food, just lovely people in general. Much better than Albany, New York. But I digress. So, we go down there to Trinidad, and I'm about to fight. I'm sitting. Our story begins. I'm in the back room. I'm preparing for my fight. Now the first fight up. If you know anything about the back room of a mixed martial arts fight, it's a pressure cooker. It's awful. It's one of the worst places you can be. You can feel the tension in the air. Like it's palpable whether you're fighting or not. You can feel that a bunch of people are essentially going to do combat, and you're nervous. It's one of the worst moments of your life. So the first fighters go up, and it's what they would call like a junior amateur fight or a cadet fight, as they call it down there. And Cuff is a mix of pro and amateurs fighting on the same card. So it's these two 16-year-olds. They're about to fight. So they go out to fight, and I'm warming up. And all of a sudden, this kid and his coach storm back in right after the fight. And the kid's like, this is bull S-word. This is this, blah, blah, blah. This is complete crap, blah, blah, blah. This is crap. This is bull. He's like using a bunch of expletives. And his coach comes up to him, and he looks at this kid with the most genuine look. And he's like, I had no idea there was ground and pound. And I'm like, oh my God. This has got to be good. This has got to be good. So I go over to them. Apparently what I found out later, what ended up happening was this kid who was in our dressing room, this fighter, he got taken down. And his opponent's mounting him, and he's landing strikes. Not the most devastating strikes in the world, but nonetheless, he's landing strikes. And the referee, it being a junior amateur fight, these being young teenagers, is not going to let this kid take a hellacious beating. So he's basically saying, get out, work to escape this position. You got to defend yourself. Okay, I'm stopping the fight. And the kid, essentially, what he was doing was trying to hammer fist this guy from bottom of mount. He's trying to throw hammer fists. So this kid and this coach are going around the dressing room essentially pleading their case with all the other fighters and coaches. Like the coach is like, I got the video, look at this, it's complete bull, look, he's doing this and he's fighting. The kid is literally demonstrating what he's doing to us. He's like talking to us. He's like, yeah, you think I was in mount, I was bouncing off the ground, I'm hitting him like brap. brap, brap, and he literally says brap as he's demonstrating how he was hammer fisting this guy from bottom mount. So just when I thought one of my coaches, shout out to Danny Beauclair, went up to the coach. The coach is like, what do you think? It's complete bull, right? It shouldn't have been stopped. And Danny's like, honestly, I think you should maybe be thinking about the safety of your fighter and like how to improve rather than like complaining about the ref's decision to stop the fight. It's a bad example for your 16-year-old fighter here. Completely true. Yes, exactly. And then so at that moment, this kid's like,
Danny.
Shout out to Danny Beauclair, true gentleman. So apparently the story doesn't end there. After the fight was stopped, the kid starts mean mugging Sensei Adam, right? The promoter of Cuff after it was stopped. And if you know anything about Sensei Adam, you do not mean mug Sensei Adam. Sensei Adam is a gangster. He went to the I think he went to the Olympics for Trinidad for karate, and he's not one of those BS karate fighters. He's like a real, he knows karate for mixed martial arts. The man kicks like a horse. So at that moment, as this kid's pleading his case and complaining, Sensei Adam storms into the back room, gets up right into this kid's face. He's like, "Boy, what was that?" He's this Chinese Trinidadi guy, right? So he's white and Chinese. He's like, "You ever try some bull s like that? I'ma f you up myself," right? Gets up in this kid's face, and this kid just falls in line. Goes from like, all hot shot, that was bull, this and that, to just silent, wide-eyed, like he's being disciplined by his dad. Adam goes off on him. The guy's coach isn't saying anything. He's like, you are never going to fight for Cuff again. You never. And then he concludes the whole speech with, you're a good kid. You come from a good bloodline. You ever try anything like that? I'ma F you up myself. Walks out of the room, and everybody is just like, that feeling in the air, like your mom and dad are having an argument, and you're just like upstairs, and it's just like, yeah, that's what it felt like. So that's my little story from Cuff.
The best part of the story is I was hammer fisting.
Nice.
By the way, I don't want to. Just a quick side note. Cuff is an excellent promotion to fight for. One of the most professional organizations I've fought for. Sensei Adam runs a tight ship, and he's a great guy. That was just one, out of the ordinary experience. Ended up winning that fight by triangle, by the way.
I saw.
Just thought I'd let the audience know. But yeah, so that's my little story.
All right. Any other notes from you, David?
No, nothing to add. Hammer fist from the bottom is absolutely hilarious. In my mind, when you started the story, I thought the dude went in thinking it was a Muay Thai match, only for him to get taken down, and he's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" That's even funnier for me.
I guess they assumed that there was no ground and pound in the fight or something. I don't know.
So what do they expect? You're gonna just transition straight to jiu-jitsu? Like,
yeah, it's like Pancrase. It's like Pancrase without all the steroids and speedos.
I got a similar story to that, but I'll save it for next week. Remind me.
Ooh, beautiful.
I have a similar story.
Hey, is this fans? If you like this at the end, a story time segment at the end, we can keep it going.
Yeah.
Why not?
David can tell you.
It's probably going to be like stories about like university, so not as exciting. But
hey, I can get down with that. Fighting off Highlanders of the 52nd Foot Regiment in Scotland.
All right. Let's do my thing. Let me do my thing.
Wait, hold on. Yeah. Before you do your thing, Stefano, don't you have a plug to plug?
That's right.
Yeah. Socials to plug?
Guys. The leg kick. If you didn't know already, YouTube, podcast app. Mike, what are the other? Spotify. We've got an Instagram page. Mike is always posting the dankest, freshest sports memes out there.
Memes. Memes.
Guys, support the leg kick. We're out here providing you free content. We're working our butts off, and we're doing it without vulgarity. We're taking over.
Yeah, we swore like 80 times today. Okay, but whatever. Like,
I'll bleep it.
I on this podcast, I can't be like, I'll bleep and crap, and Michael be like, guys, my pastor's listening. Jeez.
Hilarious. You know what? Think of it this way. We're the #1 Christian mixed martial arts podcast out there.
Oh, yeah.
And you have an atheist on your podcast. So.
Crossing boundaries, man. I'm telling you.
Wait, hold on a second. I think God in the Cage has his beat, but whatever.
God in the Cage.
I'm kidding.
What is that?
That's a Christian joke. I wouldn't even know that. Like,
yeah, David.
No, I was making a joke about a Christian podcast. That's a thing. No, it's not.
David Zoroastrian, man. David Zoroastrian. These references go over his head. But guys, we are taking over the MMA podcast world. We're doing it one listener at a time. Now, you can join us, or we can conquer you like the scum that you are. Subscribe.
No.
You will conquer.
Download, follow, like, do whatever you got to do. Send us your firstborn child, and we'll use them for slave labor to work on the podcast.
Wait,
whatever
what?
you do, do whatever you've got to do. The leg kick is going to take over this podcasting world. You do not want to make an enemy of us. Support the leg kick. Subscribe, like, comment, share it with your friends. Let them know. That's all I got for this week, guys. Stay safe. Don't get COVID.
No firstborn child were harmed in the making of that promo.